Welcome to AmonRay's The Brain series. Today we look at a very fundamental question: why do we have a brain? My name is Martin Gremlich. I'm a human biologist. I'm excited to be your guide on this biological excursion. So let's ask the question again. Why, to what purpose, do we have a brain? I'm definitely not the first one who has ever asked this question. Already some 2,400 years ago, the great Greek philosopher Aristoteles, better known as Aristotle, did discuss this question with his students. It would be very interesting to know to what conclusions the great philosopher actually came. Unfortunately, his real thoughts about the topic are lost. His only words that have survived till today is his joking reply: "We humans have a brain as a weight to counterbalance upright walking." Over the 2 millennia since, the question has become a scientific cold case. Modern neuroscience studies with greatest enthusiasm how the brain works. The questions why we have a brain in the first place and what it exactly does aren't really researched. So, what do you think? Why do you have a brain? To be clever, intelligent, a genius? You might be in for a surprise. Well, let's look at that brain a bit closer. First thing we notice, we cannot look at the brain. It's completely hidden inside the skull. In there, it benefits from the best protection and best insulation the body can provide. The only access to the brain is via the blood system, and it's connected to each and every remotest corner of your body with nerves. If we cut some poor guy's skull open and have a real look at the brain, all we see is an almost liquid, fatty, greyish, jelly-like matter that weighs 3 pounds and has a volume of about 1.3 liters. If we cut it apart, we discover that it has an extremely complex structure. And if we take a sample and put it under the microscope and do some calculations, we come to the conclusion that it must consist of about 90 billion neurons. That is really a lot of cells. It will take you about 2,852 years, 1 neuron per second, to count them. No worries, I'm not going into any further details like synaptic clefts, neurotransmitters, melatonin and stuff. That wouldn't help us to find any answers. Instead, if we keep looking at the brain, we notice something really particular. It just sits there, and we can't see what it really does. And we notice something else that is really strange. That little thing, weighing less than 2% of your body mass, consumes up to 40% of your entire resources. That really raises a question. By all means, why are we carrying such a thing around? Barely a 50th of our body that just sits there, consuming almost half of our entire resources. Obviously, by looking at it, even with the most sophisticated, expensive, high-tech equipment, we won't get any answers. Instead, how about making use of the thing? You carry it around anyway. After all, thinking doesn't require a lab or any equipment. It's free and we can do it right now. Okay, let's find out why we have a brain. Let's imagine we're a bunch of top-class alien scientists. Galactic rumors talk about a little planet out there in a place called the solar system, where there seem to be brains in use. We are now on an exciting mission to find out what this entire brain story is all about. We are already approaching the planet from a couple of thousand miles above Colombia in South America. As we move closer in, things become interesting. There seems to be a huge variety of different models of living beings. As we move in closer, we notice that there is a difference between the way they are living. There is one group of life models which simply doesn't move around. They stay at the same place. The members of the other group, however, consistently seem to do move around. The survival mechanism of those who do not move around is to be stable, stability. The survival mechanism of those who do move around is move around, mobility. In other words, the laws of nature seem to allow for two distinctly different forms of life: the form of stability and the principle of mobility. We notice that there are two-legged creatures down there who talk. They call those who don't move plants and fungi. And those who do move around, they call animals. To make it absolutely clear where those walking talkers belong to, let's call the mobility group animals and humans. Since we are among the best scientists of the entire galaxy, let's compare the two life principles. First thing we notice, the stability guys are perfectly built not to move. The mobility guys, animals and humans, on the other hand, are perfectly built to move. In other words, on this planet not free willpower, but the design of the body dictates which life principle one has to follow. Stability guys are solidly built and very resistant. They grow roots, all sorts of anchors and fixtures to keep them in place. The bodies of the mobility guys, on the other hand, have no connection to their environment. Mobility bodies must be elastic, flexible, soft tissue, so they can stretch and bend and move. That makes them fragile and vulnerable. A most amazing difference, however, is that none of the stability guys has any nerves or a brain. On the other hand, all of the mobility guys do have nerves and a brain. Wow, interesting. All stability guys have no nerves, no brain. And all mobility guys, animals and humans, do have nerves and a brain. Why is that so? Could it be that mobility absolutely requires a brain? Let's observe a little bit more. Maybe we discover the reason. Plants and fungi have a very simple body structure. Their bodies are versatile and adapt perfectly to the environment. They can grow around stones and along rocks. They can lose huge parts of their body, branches and roots, and still go on. Mobility bodies, on the other hand, consist of very complex, highly specialized organs, and each must play its role. To be able to move, they need muscles, filters, and pumps. And if they lose only small parts of their bodies, they are quickly in deep trouble. The stability guys employ the forces of nature to distribute supplies in their bodies. With a sophisticated structure, they can transport nutrients over 100 feet high without having to do anything. The mobility guys, however, constantly need to do something to survive all life long. At the very least, all of them need continuously to breathe and pump stuff around in their body with their hearts. The stability guys are extremely energy efficient. They can live on what is washed and blown to them. They are extremely efficient recyclers. They drop their leaves right on top of their roots. Animals and humans require enormous amount of energy. They constantly need to move to survive. No way they ever could live on what is washed and blown to them. They need to move around to go and get supplies. And they cannot do any recycling. In other words, plants and fungi have no reason to move around. Animals and humans, however, always must move, and most of them must move around. In other words, plants and fungi cannot move and don't need to move. Animals and humans can move and always must move. Always, 24/7, all life long. If you feel superior because you're a human, you may want to forget that for a moment. Let's compare the survival potential of stability and mobility. The champions among the stability guys can make it a couple of 1,000 years. The champions of the mobility guys make it 2 to 3 centuries, just about 3% of the oldest known plant. Most humans don't even make it a century. Not exactly a superior performance. The poor performance of the mobility guys isn't really a surprise. The laws of nature present mobility with a couple of major issues. Being able to move requires an extremely complex organism that is vulnerable and consumes enormous amounts of energy. all dictated by the laws of nature. To comply with these laws of nature is mobility's enormous challenge, because highly specialized organs require continuous coordination. The high energy consumption of these organs requires a continuous resource management. Moving around with a fragile, vulnerable body causes continuous wear and tear, and it requires a continuous, sophisticated maintenance dispatching. And last but not least, moving around requires strong motors. Humans count 625 muscles in their body, and all of them need to be coordinated 24 hours all the time. The need to move around also requires navigation. Navigation also means to be able to identify objects and determine whether there are energy sources or dangers. Forced by the laws of nature, every mobility guy needs to do all these jobs 24/7. You're probably not aware of, but you are doing these jobs right now. Plants and fungi, on the other hand, don't need to do any of this. Wow! Harmonizing every organ of the body, resource management, maintenance dispatch, movement coordination, and navigation. All of that simultaneous and all the time. What an incredibly demanding body management job every mobility guy, of course including humans, has to do, just to survive this moment, and the next moment, and the next, all life long. We mobility guys have no choice, we need to do the job. Non-stop, 24/7, all life long. Around-the-clock management is simply the price we pay to physics and chemistry for a body that can and must move. Now wait a minute, there must be somebody who does that job. Therefore, every mobile creature on the planet, from the tiniest little worm to the largest whale, fish, birds, insects, spiders, humans, require a built-in somebody who does that incredibly complex management job. All mobility guys simply require a built-in biological general manager. Forced by the laws of nature, they need a brain. The brain is the first and most important thing they need. They cannot survive a split second without it. Well, did we find an answer to our question? Mobility is why we must have a brain. Here is our logical conclusion. You can only move because your body is full of complex organs, is flexible, hence extremely vulnerable, and requires enormous amounts of energy. Therefore, you need to do demanding and extremely complex body management and navigation, from the very start of life, uninterrupted around the clock to its end. Somebody needs to do the job, and that somebody is the brain. As top alien scientists, we notice something else. It absolutely confirms what we just found out. All mobile models, from the tiniest flea to the largest whale, provide their general manager, the brain, with a head office. It's as suitable and luxurious as a mobile body possibly can provide. It's spacey, protected and insulated. A front desk secretary called blood-brain barrier selectively restricts access around the clock, and a sophisticated intercom system called nerves ensures that the boss can communicate with the remotest corners of the body. Wow, quite a place! Plus, it's continuously supplied with up to 40% of all available resources. From within this luxurious head office, the brain continuously directs the body via nerves, hormones, brainwaves, emotions, etc. 24/7. Wow, we've certainly discovered a couple of interesting things down there. We have been able to unveil the secret why, to what purpose, there are brains in use on that little planet. Mission fully accomplished. Well, while our alien scientists are happily on their way back home, For us humans down here, a couple of questions may arise. For instance, if it is really true that my brain does such an incredible management job all the time, why did I never notice? The answer is relatively simple. The fantastic non-stop 24 hours management job of your brain is 100% non-conscious. Non-conscious isn't the same as subconscious, a psychological term that isn't clearly defined. It isn't the same as unconscious either, a medical term that basically means you're knocked out. The biological term non-conscious simply means conscious access to your brain's enormous job is denied, physically impossible, at all times, under all circumstances. With your consciousness, you can only understand that your brain has to do this incredible job all the time, but you can never ever have any access to it. The reason for the denied access is once again the laws of nature. It's very simple. You must function first before you can produce any consciousness, awareness, intelligence, thoughts, willpower, imagination, etc. The role of our consciousness, awareness, intelligence, thoughts, willpower, imagination, etc. is probably the most devastating misunderstanding we humans have about ourselves. I'll discuss the biological purpose of consciousness and its several forms in a separate video of the brain series. For now, just keep in mind they are produced by your brain. They are extra work for your brain and cost your brain extra energy. They can only deal with information that is already filtered, processed, and stored in your memory, and have never any access to the here and now. They are extremely slow and sketchy, unreliable. Therefore, they can never be allowed in command, and are your brain's absolutely least concern. That's why your brain produces them only occasionally, only in leisure times, not when you sleep, only when you're okay, and not when you're tired, stressed, or sick. That's why it is so hard to focus when you have a headache. Are you ready for a really big blow to our self-declared human glory of being conscious and aware beings? Well, here it is. Recent brain research shows that at peak moments, our human brain processes up to 100 bits of conscious information per second. Quite impressive. Simultaneously, awake or asleep, however, our human brain processes 40 million bits of non-conscious information. Simply mind-blowing. It beats our best possible conscious efforts by 400,000 times per second. 40 million bits around the clock, of course. Beware, your brain is by no means a computer that ultimately only could do calculations. Your brain is your survival conductor, your ultimate boss. Remember, you need such a boss forced by the laws of nature, because you can move and always must move. Your brain must make millions of decisions per second, something a computer never can do. Not primarily unimportant decisions such as whether you should wear the green or the blue t-shirt, but absolutely vital decisions such as what to do next to keep the pH level of your blood within 1/10 of a point so that eventually you can wear a t-shirt at all. And occasionally, if nothing more urgent is at hand, your brain produces some consciousness, awareness, intelligence, thoughts, willpower, etc. to let you play around with. However, the boss can never allow those to interfere with the vital job of keep you functioning right now. That is why your incredibly complex survival management at all times remains completely non-conscious. You cannot become aware of it. Be grateful. Consciously, you would never make it into the next second. And keep in mind, being awake does not mean that you're conscious and aware of what's going on. On the other hand, please understand that you are more. Much, much more. At least 400,000 times more than you ever could consciously become aware of. Well, for us walking talkers down here, another burning question. may arise. Why do I sleep? What does my brain, my 24 hours manager, do when I sleep? Your brain never sleeps. Never, ever. Sleep is an absolutely vital activity, and most of us do it wrong. Let's look closer at sleep in a special brain series video. For now, just keep in mind, our mobile body requires a lot of complex organs, is extremely vulnerable, and consumes a lot of energy. In addition, your brain has to consider a body that has a clearly limited performance. You've only 7 liters of blood, and your heart can only pump so and so much around a time. In addition, your brain has to cope with the constant wear and tear moving around causes. On the other hand, you need to move around to go and get supplies. Your body cannot handle all it needs to do to survive at the same time. That's why, in addition to permanent body coordination and resource management, your brain also needs to do some very sophisticated timing of activities. Your brain directs 2 alternating modes of operation. One of them is the go and get supplies mode. You're activated to move around. That's what you call being awake. The other mode of operation is the maintenance and repair mode. You do not move around. You call that being asleep. You're always either awake or asleep. Never ever both at the same time, but always one of them. When you're awake, your brain has switched you to the go and get supplies mode, which allows you to move around. This mode enables you to find food and shelter and occasionally do some socializing. In this mode, your brain directs your resources to your muscles and does a complex navigation job to safely direct you around the landscape. Your maintenance and repair department, however, is put on hold. However, being awake is your blood, sweat and tears mode. Being awake is risky, drains the batteries, and causes a lot of tear and wear, forced by the laws of nature. To keep damage at bay, your brain must periodically command the maintenance and repair mode. It's high intensity time for your brain. You don't move around in the sleep mode. Skeletal muscles, eyes, external senses, etc. require intensive care too and must be taken offline. Your food processing and maintenance departments need to be activated and coordinated. Your immune system, for instance, house cleaners and detoxers are called to action. Your brain must coordinate their actions and ensure that they all get the required resources and energies. Sleep is your constructive mode. However, eventually you run out of resources and your internal waste containers are full. You need to do something about it, and your brain puts you back into the go and get supplies mode. As ideally timed as circumstances allow, your brain commands and carefully directs a never-ending sequence of awake and asleep all life long. You see, while your conscious awareness only makes some spot-like appearances, and only when you're awake or asleep, your brain never gets a rest. Never, ever. Now finally, let's look at a rumor out there that you're using only 10% of your brain. How likely is that? Remember the relatively poor survival performance of us humans, and the major challenge to keep a mobile body functioning. A fragile, vulnerable body requiring enormous amounts of energy and needing to be managed 24/7. Using only 10% of your brain, keep 81 billion of your 90 billion neurons unemployed, 36% of your entire resources wasted, have your extremely complicated body enterprise run by a CEO that is only on a 10% work schedule. 81 billion neurons burning 36% of your entire resources just as a weight to counterbalance upright walking? How likely is that? Your biological general manager must do an unimaginably complex job to keep you functioning right now. Non-stop. Using only 10% of your brain's capacity is biologically simply impossible. Your brain always runs at 100% and could do with more. Does that mean there is no potential for improvement? Oh, there is great potential for improvement. It might be different though from what you think. There is no unused potential. However, you can make much better use of what you already have, whenever you have it. First step, use your awareness, intelligence, and thoughts to understand why you have a brain. You're already getting there. Whenever your willpower is available, you can learn to choose what to think about and what to busy yourself with. Use your conscious awareness for one primary goal to make the job of your brain easier. If you do that, the laws of nature grant you a dramatic increase in quality of life. Great! The first step you have done. You know now why we have a brain. Not really to be clever, intelligent, and genius. Not really. The only reason why you have and need a brain is because your functioning right now requires an incredibly complex management job. In other words, your body requires a biological CEO, because you always must move. You must move because you can move. You can move because as a human you're built after nature's mobility principle as a part of nature, the planet's living beings. And you are, like every other living creature, subjected to the laws of nature. Well, this is the reason why you have a brain. Your brain, your survival director, your boss, your chief decision maker, the biological CEO of your body and mind enterprise. Invisible, completely hidden inside your head office. Silently, unnoticeably, does a wonderful, unimaginably complex job to allow you to be you right now, and now again, and again, and again. Respect your brain. I mean, respect your brain. Admire your brain. Support your brain. Trust your brain. And most of all, take good care of your brain. I mean it. Take good care of your brain because you've got only one. Thank you for watching.